A lot of people think that they don't have time to kind of city-stead, as I like to call it, homesteading in the city, because there's a lot of things that we need to do, right? Work and all that, taking care of the family. But guys, there is time utilizing machines, which has just got me so excited because one person could do so much. And today we're going to talk about canning broths. You can can a whole bunch of meats and burgers, tuna, vegetables, stuff like that. But I just want to talk about broths today because it's one of the simplest, easiest things to do and to utilize your waste. I know a lot of people are in the struggle right now and things may get worse, and we need to start figuring out how we can start becoming more of a producer of our life than a consumer. And this is a simple little one that anybody could do, even if you're in an apartment. So let's start off with it. It's electric canner, guys. And the time on, for the whole machine, from starting to boil your broth to ending with the canning is roughly about an hour. And we're talking just the machine, right? Your total hands-on time should be, if you get good enough, like 15 minutes, and you'll have about 5 quarts of broth. Now, let's talk about where you get the broth first, I guess. Now, let's start with square one is pressure cook or thermal cook your meat and or bones. Meats, I'll give you guys an example. I'll do, say, chicken thighs, right? I want to do pulled chicken sandwiches. So what I'll do is I'll either pressure cook the chicken in water or, which is also automated in one of those, what is it, the Instapot or whatever, the Ninja Foodie, whatever, they got all those different types of things. It's set and forget it is really nice. Or what I'll also do, you can pretty much set and forget too, is get a thermal cookware, which is basically just cooking food in a large thermos. Boil it, put your chicken thighs in there, fill it with water, boil it for about a good 10 minutes, and then close the lid. You can do this in the morning, stick it in a corner. It goes inside this sealed thermos, and it'll cook all day. When you get back, it'll literally just fall apart. If you're utilizing chicken or beef or whatever you're doing with the bone on, the meat will literally fall off the bone, and then you can keep the bones, right? That's actually my number one would be something with bone in it. So there you go. You could do this. I do shredded beef, the same thing. Do a thermal cook or pressure cook, say some chuck roast or something like that. Then you have shredded beef. So once you're done with that, you're going to take your meat out and you're going to have your broth left over. Now, whether it's bones or broth, right? If you have bones, you can take and put them in a Ziploc bag or something, stick them in the freezer until you accumulate enough of them to really make a good bone broth. And I don't want to go in details on how to make the broth, really. I want to talk about the canning process. All right, so once you got your broth, you pulled your meat out, you got your hot broth there, you're going to pour it into, say, a mason jar, and you're going to filter it right then and there. You want to get any particulates out. At this point, you could do a cheesecloth if you want, something to get more of the particulates out. I kind of prefer that so it's more clear and there's not so much of the residuals. You're going to put a lid on that can and you're going to stick it in the refrigerator. Not in the freezer, the refrigerator. We're going to let this cool down, and the reason why is too much fat, from my understanding, is not really good for long-term storage when you're canning. So I prefer to take all of it out and actually save that fat for other purposes. You can actually, once the jars are cool, you can stick a fork in there or something and kind of bust up the fat. The quickest way, instead of trying to fork it out, is to take it while it's cool with the fat, break all the fat up, and then dump all the fluids out into like a little wire strainer, and all of your fluids will go down and all the fat will be stuck in the strainer. Then you can just render that and save that for later. That's another podcast for another day. All right, so now we got our broth, right? We got all the particulates out. Now, at this point, if you don't have enough cans, which I didn't put in my notes here, you have to have at least 3 quarts if you're going to use most of these electric canners. If you don't have at least 3, you just have 1. Bottle it up, leave about a good 1.5 inch headspace so that your jar doesn't crack. Stick it in the freezer until you have at least 3 jars. Maximum you could do is 5 jars in most of these canners. I think there's one that does 6. All right, so if you're not going to freeze it, let's get started. Stick your broth, now it was cool, into a pot, and that's the very first thing. You're going to light it up. We're going to need to get this thing heated up to, we don't need to really boil it. We just need to simmer it and get it up to heat. That way, when you put it in the canner, it's already nice and hot and everything will start to flow. Otherwise, everything's got to heat up inside the electric canner until it gets to a certain temperature, and then wham, we go. All right, so you got your pot and you got everything started as far as heating up. Now what you're going to do is you're going to fill your canning equipment the vessel, it usually has a fill mark. It's sometimes about 2 inches of water. You can use hot water to expedite this from the sink. And then what you're going to do is you're going to fill up your mason jars with hot water as well. This makes everything go a lot faster. Otherwise, like I said, the machine has to heat everything up. You're going to stick your jars, no lid on, stick them inside the canner, close the lid, press warm jars, and this thing will automatically, you can walk away, guys. And this takes sometimes around 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes. It's got to get up to, to heat. So while your jars are getting heated up, and the reason I guess I should say too is that if you put a cold jar into hot water, especially into a canner, it's most likely going to crack. So we want to get those jars the same temperature as the water, the ambient temperature that inside the canner. Okay, so we got our jars filled, and we're going to wash our lids while the jars are heating up. And nothing crazy, just kind of scrub them up a little bit of soap. Make sure you rinse them very well. Check for any dry food or anything, or if the gaskets are all messed up. And these are also not plastic lids, guys. These are metal lids. And I actually think I found that they have stainless steel lids. This would be good in wet climates like Oregon or Florida. All right, so we got our jars filled with hot water. The canner will beep off. You're going to take it. You're going to dump all that hot water off. They got these neat little can grabbers. I highly recommend them. They're only a couple bucks, but it looks like a pair of scissors, but it's got a little ring at the end, so you can literally grab your jar, take it over to the sink, and just turn it over and just spill all that hot water out, and then place it next to your broth. Hopefully by now your broth is boiling. It's been 15, 20 minutes or nice and heated up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fill the jars. And what we're going to do, what's really nice is a canning funnel. It's a very large funnel that just sits right on top. Now you can get a ladle, fill up your heated jars, or I prefer, they do have this little silicone gasket thing that kind of hooks on the side of your saucepan so you don't pour. Guys know when you're pouring a glass of water and everything drips down the bottom, you're getting broth, the same thing with your pot of broth. You're just getting stuff everywhere. But to ladle it, I don't really have time. I'm a man, I guess I would say, for lack of better words. I can grab that thing with my strength and just fill up my jars as I want. So regardless how you're going to fill them up and leave about an inch headspace. Now, if you need to go and get yourself a little measuring thing, they've got them. They have a really cool canning funnel that actually has a little measurement on it as well that'll actually tell you 3/4 an inch and a half, whatever. So as you're filling your jar, it just really goes up and lines it. But you don't have to get too crazy on this, guys. Just roughly about an inch from the top of the lid is what you want a headspace. This relieves, gives it less oxygen so it can go bad, and it actually makes the whole canning process, the seal and everything better for various reasons. All right, so once you got your jars filled, you're going to put your lids on. You're going to put the cap on top, the little metal cap. Then you got your ring, and very important, you don't want to hand tighten that ring. You just want to screw it in until it just slightly gives resistance. You're leaving it loose, right? The steam, and when you can this thing, it's going to cause suction, and it's going to literally turn. Actually, it won't turn the ring. What it'll do is suction the lid right on, and you don't the flat lid right on top of the jar. So 25 minutes. You've got your jars in there. And you can walk away at this time, guys, and you can walk away for up to 24 hours with this stuff. And I'll tell you why in a minute. So one detail I think I forgot as well is kind of important in here. I started jumping the gun, and I didn't put in my notes now that I'm thinking about it. When you fill your jars, usually there's sometimes some little air bubbles in there. You want to get a plastic fork or stainless steel. I don't think it even matters. But you basically just kind of want to whip around just very quickly. Just kind of whisk the bubble so everything pops out before you put the lid on. So that's very important. You want to get rid of all that oxygen in there. So all right, so you push play for 25 minutes. It'll go off. It takes a little bit of time for it to heat up too, just like a pressure cooker. If you've ever used one, electric automated, probably about 5 minutes, to get to heat, and then it'll seal all off. And then, guys, that's pretty much it. You can literally do this at night like I do after, when I get home after cooking dinner. And it takes me about, an hour's total time. But in between that 25 minutes and while things are boiling, I mean, you could really just do many other things. There's another detail I think I left out of here too, which is probably getting annoying for you guys. Sorry about that. But What I do is I get white vinegar on a paper towel, and before I even screw the lids on, after I fill the jars, I kind of give it a wipe around the rim just to make sure if anything's splashed right, we don't have anything that can contaminate. It's kind of like a chain, right? If you had a drip of, say, chicken broth or something, you put the lid on, that bacteria could find its way in and then pollute your broth. Okay, so either after 25 minutes, let everything cool for a little while, open up the lid to your canner. Or if you return the next day, which you totally can, you're going to pull your cans out of the automatic pressure cooker, set them down. And once everything's cool, if you're doing it right away, let them cool down first. You're going to unscrew the ring as one of the last things, and you're going to just barely push on the lid, the metal cap. You're also going to check to make sure the cap's dimpled. It's inverted, right? Like a belly button. Not if it's sticking up, that means you didn't get a good seal. You can utilize that broth, like that's why the 24-hour thing. Utilize that broth immediately. Go make yourself some soup or put it in the fridge, if you can't do it right now. But that's not going to seal that. You cannot can that, right? And the biggest thing of all is date and label your cans, because I did it when I first started out, and I had no idea how old something was and what it was, and it was annoying. I just put on, like I just did some last week, I just put one as of January 23. That's it. And I put beef broth on it. Beef broth 123. I know it was done in January, year of 23. These things can last for many, many, many years. And take them and store them in a area where it's kind of cool, not very hot, right? Make yourself a little pantry or in your closet or something like that. And there you go, guys. So to sum it up, guys, there's so many things we can do. I've been really, concerned about this recession. I mean, that's the big talk and stuff. Inflation going up, devaluing our dollar, eggs going up by 50%, 60%, right? All this cost. These are things that you guys can utilize for your lives to live a better life and not waste, right? Get the most out of your food. Keep repurposing it. Guys, the bone broth is just break those bones up and put them in the thermal cooker or pressure cook them. And man, if you look at regular chicken broth, it's like, I think like $4 or something. Or no, I think it was about $12 for like a pack of 4 quarts, right? $12. Bone broth is like up to like $20 for 4. A lot more nutrients and stuff in it. So guys, that's the show. I hope this helps you out. If you do, like, subscribe, and all that wonderful stuff. And if you have questions and want to hear something particular, there's an email down below. Let me know. I'll see you guys on the next one.